Welcome back, everyone. This is picking up from yesterday's lecture about modern influences. So today we're going to be talking about modern social influence and how that has changed in the world today. Since today is a short lecture, you're not going to be required to turn in any video lecture notes. However, there are 2 questions in the video, so if you want to answer those 2 questions for 2 bonus points, you can do that. There is a place on Blackboard to submit that. Your quiz is still due at 11:59 today, and I will remind you of these things again at the end. So the first question that you could answer for bonus is to give an example of how attitude change might occur online. So think back to what we know and what we learned about how we formed our attitude. So through conditioning and social learning, the mere exposure effect, all the different things that we talked about, but also how we're persuaded, so our central and peripheral routes, and then how we are influenced and how we get people to do what we want. So when you're answering these questions, think about all of those things. We talked about conforming to social norms and compliance approaches. So just consider everything we've learned up to this point in your answer. Starting with attitude formation online, rapid and extensive feedback on your ideas provides more opportunity for operant conditioning and social learning. So all of our online platforms have some type of feedback system for us to receive, whether that's likes, retweets, favorites, comments, up likes, different things like that. You get into this loop of wanting that feedback and that confirmation from others. So that's that social learning and operant conditioning. And normally on social media, your ideas can either be reinforced positively or challenge. So we've seen how that can look differently as well. Persuasion online. The overwhelming amount of information online can fragment our attention and lead to more heuristic processing. So we may increasingly rely on the peripheral route to persuasion. Because data is constantly collected about online users, advertisements can be personalized to us, making both the central and peripheral routes more effective. So much information that means that we're not always going to look carefully at the detailed arguments. And we're always distracted because there is so much to consume all of the time. So talking specifically about personalized ads, a lot of us are kind of familiar with this. I happen to think this is a really interesting category of targeting. But personalized ads, or formerly known as interest-based advertising, helps advertisers select things and amplify things that are relevant to the user, relevant to the consumer. And this can be based on all types of things: your search history, your app history, how long you spend on each page of an app, your demographic information, your location. There are so many ways to target things specifically for you and the things that you like. So we're going to talk a little bit more though about the idea of personalized ads and how that applies to different traits that we have or that we believe that we have. So here you can see the difference between an extrovert ad and an introvert ad. So the extrovert ad is trying to speak to that person that feels like, they need to be around other people. They need that energy to feel charged through social interactions. So you see she's dancing, she's around other people, she's having fun, and it's saying dance like nobody's watching, but they totally are. So really amplifying the idea of being an extrovert. Whereas the introvert ad, it's solo, she's by herself, but it's saying beauty doesn't have to shout. So it's telling you that you can still really use our product and still be an introvert. Marketing towards that shyness, that introvert, that stay alone, that quiet type of thing. But an introvert might look at this and say, this is exactly the thing that I'm going for. Your second bonus question would be to give me an example of a time where you experienced a personalized ad, and why was it personalized to you? So when talking about these personalized ads, we have to understand how they align with the recipient or the consumer's personality profile. So this study, Personalized Persuasion, Tailoring Persuasive Appeals to Recipients' Personality Traits, examines how persuasive messages can be more effective when they are tailored to the recipient's personality. In their experiment, they created 5 versions of product advertisement, each tailored to one of the big 5 personality traits: Ocean, that's the acronym. Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. These ads were then evaluated by 324 participants. Here are some of the items from the Big Five inventory, and the items that are italicized would be the ones that are reverse scored. So openness, or also referred to as intellect, is a person that's more creative and likes to try new things. Conscientiousness is thoughtfulness, minding your impulse control, and having goal-directed behaviors. Extroversion refers to your sociability, your talkativeness, your assertiveness. Agreeableness is about how much you care about other people and how much you take interest in helping others. And then lastly, neuroticism is how easily stressed and upset you are, if you're prone to anxiety, sadness, or moodiness. So we typically refer to this little acronym as OCEAN that you can see over here. So we're going to read through a couple of the examples that they use in the ads that they created. Each of them started with this phrase. When designing X phone, designers and engineers didn't start with a clean piece of paper. They started with years of experience designing and building phones that redefine what a phone can do. So every participant saw that before they got their specific little blurb about the phone. So for extroverts, it says X phone is the result of everything they've learned so far, a phone designed for strong, active, outgoing people like you. With the new X phone, you'll always be where the excitement is. You're the life of the party, and the X phone will keep you in the spotlight. Experience the fun and rewards of the latest technology and express yourself to the world. Get in touch with your social side and harness the power of X phone to get you more of the attention that you deserve. And there are even some things that I missed in bolding that are still really highlighting that extrovert quality that you would align with if you would consider yourself an extrovert. For neurotics, they say X phone is the result of everything they've learned so far, and this is a phone that will keep you safe. It's designed to keep you safe and sound. The X phone helps reduce the anxiety and uncertainty of modern life. With access to information about the world around you, you'll never be in the dark again. Experience the security and protection of having instant access to the help you need, no matter where you are. The new X phone is your defense against the unknown and a shield against emergencies. Stay safe and secure with the X phone. For conscientiousness, we can see something very similar. They emphasize a schedule, simplifying your work life, boosting productivity, achieving your goals, and maximum efficiency. And then with people high in openness, they pushed access to information, innovation, being creative, staying active and inspired, discovering new things, and staying in touch with your creative side. So advertisements were evaluated more positively when they cohered more with participants' dispositional motives with their personality. So what people thought about themselves, if that aligned with the advertisement, it was going to be rated more positively. So advertisements or persuasion in general is likely to be much more effective at getting us to buy what we want when again it's specified to us. So now we need to talk a little bit about the cognitive dissonance and system justification in an online world. So we know cognitive dissonance is that uncomfortability we have when a thought doesn't necessarily match a behavior. And then system justification is just kind of believing in a just world and a just system. But how does that work when we are talking about online spaces? Let's use climate change as an example. We know that protecting the environment is important to slow climate change, but as a person, I don't always recycle and I eat meat, etc., etc. I do these different things that might not be supporting a slow climate change, so I have this dissonance. To reduce dissonance, we could do the typical things that we've talked about before. I could change my behavior. I could recycle, or I could eat less meat. I could change my attitude to think that the environment is less important, or I could add a consonant thought. I could tell myself, you know what, I'm just one person. What I'm doing is not going to make that much of a difference. Or in an online space, people can often share a post on social media, and that alleviates a lot of dissonance that people feel. Consensus and conformity online. It's easy to overestimate the extent to which your view is typical, especially on social media. Algorithms curate what you see to keep you engaged, and you curate your friends. So let's take the issue of gun control. If I unfollow people who disagree with me, and only the people who are left are people that agree with me, it's going to keep my attitude from changing because I'm not getting a lot of alternative viewpoints to consider. And then I'm going to think that there's a clear consensus supporting my perspective. A related and overlapping problem is misinformation. So bots can post information including fake news and deep fakes. Social influence historically has been based on the idea that people are getting true information to be influenced by. But what about when information we receive is false or misleading? On the left, we see an example involving a deepfake video of Tom Cruise, reportedly created and circulated by Russian sources targeting the Paris Olympics. The AI-generated video uses a synthetic version of Cruise's voice and likeness to criticize the Olympic Committee, showcasing how deepfakes can weaponize celebrity personas to sow distrust or misinformation on an international scale. On the right, we have a still from a video report about election-related deepfakes in India. These AI-generated clips have been spreading across social media, manipulating political narratives and potentially influencing voter perception. This shows us how deepfakes can be used to interfere with democratic processes, especially in regions where digital literacy and media regulation may be uneven. Deepfakes are usually effective at depicting alternative facts and fake news, but they can be difficult to detect. However, it seems like they aren't particularly persuasive to people who don't already have an opinion. They're particularly persuasive to radicalized people who already hold a belief. So this article here talks about, again, same thing I just said, that deepfakes are vehicles for radicalization, not necessarily persuasion. Research suggests that most people cannot tell fake news from real news. Google and other sites are working to remove and tag misinformation, but consumers can be educated to identify fake news. Inoculation theory suggests that people can build up cognitive resistance against unwanted persuasion attempts through pre-bunking, and you do that by preemptively exposing people to weakened doses of persuasive arguments and by encouraging them to make counter arguments. The process of inoculation follows a biomedical immunization analogy where exposure to a weakened strain of a pathogen triggers the production of antibodies to confer protection against any future infection. In a similar fashion, inoculation theory posits that people can build up cognitive resistance against unwanted persuasion attempts through pre-bunking, and that is exposing people to the weakened doses of pervasive arguments. The idea is similar to how vaccines work. You expose people to a weakened version of misinformation tactics so that they can recognize and resist them in real-world situations. What you're seeing here is a screenshot from the Bad News game, and this is linked at the top. This is also in your slides on Blackboard, and it's developed to teach users how misinformation spreads. In the game, you actually play the role of a fake news creator. You're guided through tactics like impersonation, conspiracy framing, and emotional manipulation. This helps you build resistance to the strategies in real life. This study was done in 2021, and it found that this kind of pre-bunking or pre-exposure to manipulation techniques can significantly increase people's ability to detect and resist fake news, even weeks after playing. So rather than just fact-checking after the fact, inoculation prepares people in advance. It's a proactive and scalable tool in the fight against misinformation. By exposing them to misinformation strategies, they see the kinds of persuasive arguments others might make. It gives them the weaker dose because they can see that it's fake, and it provides an opportunity for them to develop the counter arguments they'll need when they encounter misinformation in real life. A few of the strategies include impersonation, which is disguising yourself as a credible news source because people don't pay much attention to sources. Instead of being an angry citizen, you become an editor-in-chief of a news site to have more influence. That would be an example. Appealing to emotion. This would be something like posting things that evoke fear, anger to make people more susceptible to your message. Polarizing audiences would be like finding new grievances and blowing them up to drive people apart and make people think a story is more important than it really is. If you use amplification bots to retweet, maybe even both sides of it, it seems like there would be a really important issue. Floating conspiracy theories. If you start with something reasonable and then float something else that's related, like a orchestrated covert group or organization, this is going to make people really enthralled and excited about what you're talking about. When people notice that you're spreading misinformation, discredit them by attacking with a counter offense. And then trolling, argue with people online, deliberately fighting with people and saying true and untrue things. At the end, it asks people to evaluate their information and refute it. They completed questions like this after going through the game. Seeing a statement, scientists discovered solution to greenhouse effect years ago but aren't allowed to publish it, report claims. And then they have to rate on this scale very unreliable to very reliable. Here are the results from that study. People who completed the bad news game were less likely to believe the fake news at the end of their time points, ranging from 1 week after planning, which is T1 on your graph, to T5, which would have been 13 weeks after playing. Specifically, they rated the fake news to be less reliable. A couple of reminders. The access code for today's quiz is up on the screen. Your quiz is due today at 11:59. You don't have to submit video lecture notes from today's lecture, but if you chose to answer the 2 questions, you can submit those to Blackboard for 2 bonus points. We will have another video lecture tomorrow, so make sure that you are staying up to date with our announcements on Blackboard and the things that are posted.